Welcome to the Movie Vault. I'm Zach.
I'm Ben.
I'm Jonathan.
And today we're going to talk about a quaint little story called Toy Story. It is a movie that came out in 1995, directed by John Lasseter, and screenplay by the Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Joss Whedon, and Andrew Stanton, Joel Cohen, and Alec Sokolow. Those are the writers. They have a lot of writers. Yeah. And John Lasseter and Pete Docter, Ben and I's favorite, has done the story. And yeah, let's get into it. We have Jonathan on again. Last podcast he was on was
Lightyear, I think.
That's right, Lightyear, which is related to this one. So
yeah. Well, I wanted to bring up a movie where I could actually talk about the animation.
Yeah.
Because with Lightyear, it was just at a certain point it gets good enough that it's not interesting to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't interesting anyway, so don't go listen to that episode. Actually do. just do it, even though it's boring. But, yeah, so I guess we can get started with some first impressions. This movie came out in 1995. None of us were born, all right? Let's just say that right now.
I don't know if I remember my first impressions. I watched it when I was 4.
Yeah, oh, okay. That's actually earlier on than I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, so what were your first impressions with, maybe your first impressions with animation in the back of your head?
Okay. Holy moly, is there a lot of jank, but it's also still really fun. That if I had to sum it up in kind of like one sentence, it's like I noticed so much more about it where it's like, admittedly, it's technologically limited, right? Because let's not kid ourselves, computers back then were kind of trash compared to what we have nowadays. So, and you know, not everything was figured out at that point. So, yeah. But it's still a lot of fun. I still really like the story. A lot of the jokes are still really good. And yeah.
My first impressions, well, I don't exactly remember the first time I watched this movie, but my first impression on rewatch
I feel
was
like that's gonna be how it is for all of us. It's like we've already seen this one before, but first impression
was that I went into it kind of with the mindset of like, okay, this was like a truly revolutionary movie. I tried to imagine what it was like in a world when, you know, teenagers weren't dressing up in suits to go see Minions and like animation wasn't a huge part of society as a, you know, sort of an accepted art form. Like it was very in its early stages, and Pixar it was probably a pretty big risk, honestly, to make this movie, although Tom Hanks was in it. So it's like, I guess they somewhat knew that it could be successful, probably. Yeah. Otherwise, they wouldn't have hired Tom Hanks. And so seeing that, and really, it's like the kind of has all of the basic like Pixar themes, maybe a little bit less related to family, just because like other than witnessing Andy's family, like, or the family that they get through friendship, like there's not as much of like family ties, but like some of the like jealousy and then coming together and working together and those sorts of things, basic stuff that Pixar has had throughout their films, you can see. So I appreciate it, I think, from that level of just being like, this is what kickstarted it all and what allowed, you know, Toy Story 3 was like, I cried at the end of that movie. Like, it's so good.
Oh yeah.
And it's like it's hard to believe that a movie about toys that from the 90s that's like it could get to the point where you cared so much about the characters that there was just moments that were just like so powerful by the third one. So that was kind of where my mind was.
Yeah, which is why, like, since it's so familiar, I don't even think we need a plot summary. But the thing is, I noticed two things, all right? Because I haven't seen this movie in years, and I'm glad I didn't like it that much this time. But one thing I noticed was Randy Newman, the guy who sings Friend in Me or whatever it's called, made all the songs in this movie, and there were multiple songs where they were singing, right?
Yeah.
I thought
but you only remember Friend in Me, you know?
Yeah, that was the most famous. That was the breakthrough song. That's kind of what helped gather this movie. So I just thought that was kind of cool that he made all the songs in it, because you only think of that song, and you probably only think that song's in the movie, but there are other ones too. The other thing is, this movie is a lot more adult than the other movies, not with themes, but with jokes. So when you think of the Toy Story franchise, you think of it evolving in each movie. You think of the themes going more dramatic as you get on. Even the fourth one covering almost like a parenting type of thing, and like moving on with your life after your goals have been completed and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which are what millennials or whatever are feeling right now. I hate millennials. I'm sorry. I just do. And sorry, and that's just it's
Want to go on a tangent real quick?
No, I don't. But it's cool to see that, because as the audience matures, so do the movies. But with this movie specifically, the jokes were a little bit more inappropriate than the other ones. As far as I know, maybe I haven't rewatched the other ones recently.
Oh yeah. Oh,
But did you guys notice that? Do you think?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
There,
So
there were some jokes and whatnot where it's like maybe Pixar nowadays could do it, but I doubt it.
yeah, I mean there was like I just have a couple notable ones. Like there was like was it like the yo-yo with like the legs? I mean that was supposed to be a hooker.
Yeah,
That's exactly what it was.
That is in fact a hooker.
I mean I just thought of that. I was like it's legit a hooker. It's a Toy Story hooker.
Yeah.
And then there was one where Buzz is like completely drunk at that tea party.
Yeah.
I was just like,
It's
these
I am
aren't.
just suffering from a little bit of depression. That's all.
Yeah, and like none of these things are like. I mean, I don't know what Pixar's target demographic was back then. I'm just wondering. It was definitely
Well,
kids
you
in some
see,
way.
Given that this was their first movie, they didn't know what their target demographic was either, or at the very least, I think they had an aim. Maybe I don't know. I wasn't there, but they didn't really have it completely figured out because they didn't have any benchmark to go off of like, oh yeah, these are the kind of people who like watching our movies. It's like, heck if I know who likes our stuff. We're just making it and hoping for the best.
They sort of aim for like in between like the Angry Birds movie.
I haven't watched that one yet.
And,
You're gonna have to synopsize that one for me.
And South Park. Like it's like sort of like, well,
Hold on, I gotta disagree with you there.
maybe a little bit more towards the Angry Birds movie side of things. Okay, maybe I needed a less extreme. I'm just saying like it wasn't totally like adult humor based, because if it was, it would be like, maybe it still wouldn't be like South Park, but it wouldn't be. It would be more like The Simpsons or like something like that already existed. I guess The Simpsons was already
Maybe.
a thing. Fortunately, the most of these types of like would you describe this as 3D animation?
Yeah.
What is the technical term?
I think that pretty much is the technical term.
Okay, 3D.
I mean,
I just wanted to make sure there wasn't
so
another.
here's the thing, right? If you want to be real fancy about it, technically it's all under the umbrella of CGI, and we tend to think of CGI as, oh, it's like visual effects and whatnot in like big movies, but technically it's any computer generated image.
Yeah.
So this would technically fall under that umbrella, very much so. But really, it's like, yeah, 3D animation. I mean, even if you like really go into like the 3D field, it's not like, oh yes, I'm a CGI technical artist. It's 3D artist, and like that's it.
Right.
There's just that distinction between 2D and 3D.
My point is though that how it's developed over time is that these types of movies are only for kids audiences, and then they're for kids audiences first always, and then there's a lot of times a secondary like pool for adult audiences, like in the Pixar movies.
Yeah,
and
unfortunately, that's kind of the way it is.
But there are some exceptions to that.
Yeah.
And fortunately, they haven't been as successful because they've been like Sausage Party and like movies like that, which probably are just not good movies to begin with. So like I'm just kind of glad that they weren't successful, so that we didn't have
that
like
movie
that
literally just tried to sell itself based on the fact like, ooh, it's adult, without even actually like going in depth of like, but here's why it could be good.
Yes, no, I didn't. I don't think I was trying that hard.
No.
Yeah. But I did notice there's a lot of really good quotes in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Including Buzz Lightyear's. This was my favorite one. You are a sad, strange little man, and you have my pity. Mm-hmm. That was, I don't know, for some reason, I was like, I don't remember that line. I didn't remember that line.
It's so quotable.
But it's...
Any time that someone makes a massive mistake in front of you, you get to say that, and it is just the greatest feeling ever. or just says something ridiculous.
And of course, there's Woody just saying, "You are a toy!" for like 20 minutes of the movie.
Yeah. I really like that. For Buzz Lightyear, it doesn't hit home until he enters a depression-fueled existential crisis.
Yeah, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the themes are kind of adult in this too, just a little bit. But they don't meet. It's not the main themes of the movie.
No. It's like how a movie can have like, it has its themes, but it's not where its heart is. You know.
True, for sure. It was definitely like a more simple plot, like Ben said. It was just kind of like just simple, but like what is it? Like they're jealous of each other and have to overcome. They're the two people that get put together for the whole movie. You know.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, two alpha males fighting. But one thing I also noticed, I guess three things I noticed. So Woody in this movie, to me, the first half of the movie was pretty much unbearable. I love Woody in the rest of the series.
Well, yeah. That's kind of the whole shtick with this first one. It's like Woody's kind of a jerk. Like,
yeah,
throughout the majority of the movie, even it takes until like maybe the last third of the movie for him to no longer be like a full jerk.
Yeah, and he's immature. He's just like petty, and he tries to kill someone. Like,
Oh yeah.
tries to kill Buzz.
He comes up with a murder plot in less than 20 seconds.
And then in the second one, he's like a super nice guy. You know, he's like helping Jessie escape from her past and stuff like that. It's just like,
well, even in the second one, there's this hint of selfishness to it. But I think by the third one, it's pretty much all gone.
Yeah.
Because in the second one, there's kind of that thing of like, well, maybe Andy won't want me anymore, so I'll, you know, even if I'm not going to be played with, I'm going to go to the crowd that, you know, will love me, will adore me. You know, I'll be in a museum. There'll be pictures of me. You know, it's like there's that hint of selfishness in it. And then by third, it's pretty much all gone.
So I actually saw themes in this movie that culminate in the fourth movie. I saw the relationship that Buzz and Andy had. Woody was jealous of it. And in the fourth movie, the whole thing is Andy's gone, Bonnie likes Jessie now, so Woody is either irrelevant or needs to move on. And I think I saw kind of the themes in this movie, like, oh yeah, the fourth movie makes a lot more sense. That his relationship with Andy meant a lot to him, a lot. And I wasn't that emotionally invested because like I didn't remember it that much. But it was pretty cool to see that in this specifically. And then I did want to bring up one more thing. Speaking of, since you're on the Lightyear review, so we had like the Buzz Lightyear plot was almost stated in this movie. Did you notice that when they're on the bed?
Well,
and he says,
because it's all the marketing material.
Yeah. It was like my ship crash landed here. We don't have an energy source. Have you discovered crystal energy source?
Yes, I noticed that.
And I was like, that's basically the plot to Buzz Lightyear without the time travel.
Yeah. However, one retcon that, you know, the Lightyear movie made that I noticed was that in that little scene in the parking lot of the gas station where, you know, Woody has the exclamation, "You are a toy." Buzz elaborates on the plot of Lightyear by saying that Zurg has a big evil weapon, whereas they didn't know who Zurg was until the very finale of the movie, and I don't think there was any implication of him having a massive weapon.
I got much more the impression that and I would need to refresh on Toy Story Episode 2 because Zurg's in it, and so that could potentially, not that he still believes that he's actual Buzz Lightyear, could potentially have some other elements of the story, but I think in Lightyear they made a change on who Zurg was originally intended to be.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it was supposed to be Buzz's father originally, and it's almost like I almost think the mistake was that in making the movie was that like they couldn't follow the blueprint of that Toy Story gave, because it was like when they were making Toy Story, they weren't thinking, oh, we're gonna make
who makes a work and then goes, you know, I think 2 decades from now we'll make a spin-off.
But I mean, they might have thought they might make a spin-off, but they did. I don't think they would have thought that they would make this like meta spin-off.
No.
But still, it's like I feel like they still could have used the bare bones that they gave and made a better story that felt more. Like, I almost wish they would have tried to make it fit more within the time period that Toy Story actually came out in, because it's not believable to me that he watched this story in Lightyear.
Not to,
like Andy.
Not to derail this podcast too much, although that does seem to be a common theme here. When it comes to Lightyear, I think I might have told you this on the phone, but I don't think I said this on the podcast. Lightyear strikes me as a movie that would have been better if it had been freed from the restrictions that Toy Story offered. And it was just like, it's entirely separate, Pixar-made, generic sci-fi movie. Just because Toy Story, although it added a lot of marketing power to the movie, it also tied them down in certain areas.
Which didn't actually seem to help because it didn't do that well.
Yeah.
So maybe the marketing power was less powerful than they originally thought.
Yeah, but anywho, that just sort of a thought that I've kind of been tumbling around in my mind.
Well, keep your thoughts tumbling, because this is the whole reason we had you on this, is to look at the different discrepancies between what you're studying in animation and what you saw in this movie. Now, before, we got the impression that you did not like the animation in this movie, but you have already acknowledged that they didn't have the greatest computers back then, so you don't have to give them any sympathy.
Well, there's one really big technology that they did not have at the time that makes animation in 3D so much easier.
And what is that?
Inverse kinematics.
Okay, explain.
So basically, this is most often attributed to like animating like legs and stuff and feet. So like, let's say you have a limb, right? And we're gonna use my arm in this.
I know, I do have one.
Yeah.
Let's say though.
Yeah.
Let's
say you have a limb.
Okay.
Imagine having that.
All right.
Typically speaking, when you're animating, There's forward kinematics and inverse kinematics. Forward kinematics is basically you, the animator, selecting a point and saying, I want the hand to be right there. So you move the upper arm, then you move the lower arm, and you kind of adjust it until it arrives at that point that you just mentally determine.
Yeah.
Inverse kinematics is like mathematically saying, all right, I'm going to define this point, and the computer is going to figure out for me the exact rotations in order to make sure that, let's say, the hand arrives at that point. So I don't have to adjust it one by one. I just define the point.
So that just saves time, right?
Yeah, because let's say I want to have a foot planted to the ground. Every time you move the upper body, where the legs are shift. Because guess what? They're connected.
Oh.
So having the computer do that for you of like, oh yeah, the foot stays here because you define that target area. And there's multiple parts in the movie where I don't think they had inverse kinematics because like the foot is sliding across the floor because the upper body is moving.
Kind of like a zombie.
Yeah, or like the foot will like clip through the floor. There was one scene where it's like where the foot was made like a weird like jittering motion. It wasn't even like sliding or whatever. It was just going all over the place because the animator, the poor animator who did that scene, tried his hardest to match up everything so his foot looked like it was planted on the ground, but he just couldn't get it quite right.
Yeah.
But it's like, that's a massive technology that saves so much time.
Yeah.
Of just like, oh, I don't have to worry about making the feet look planted to the ground.
Yes.
I defined that spot.
Yes.
They're just going to stay there.
Thank you for the truckers who delivered the supplies for the animators to change reverse kinematics and stuff like that. That's
Forward
great.
kinematics.
Well, yeah, that too. So, the one thing that I saw in the design specifically was how ugly the characters looked. I hated the look of Sid. What was wrong with his forehead? It looked like it was swelled up.
Oh man, we're going down a rabbit
I thought
hole.
I hated Andy's character design until I saw Sid. Okay, Sid
looks
terrible.
Sid looks terrible. Andy looks fantastic in comparison. Man's basically a model.
Yeah, but I thought Andy looked so ugly. I was like, this is terrible. And then I saw Sid.
Yeah.
It changed my mind completely.
Yeah. It's all about perspective.
It is. It is like, you think I'm ugly? Look at Ben. Okay? All right? For sure. But, you know, I agree with Ben. There were a couple notable lines in this, too. I thought Woody calling the aliens in the claws zealots, I thought that was kind of cool. It's just like, kids aren't going to know what that means.
No.
Like, political zealots. Yeah, and then Woody calls Buzz Lightyear Buzz Light Beer.
Well, and he also calls him straight up a loony at one point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's his...
No, it's not as over kids' heads as
if I have kids,
else,
I'm going to let them say any words they want. I'm just joking.
That feels like poor policy.
I'm just joking. But no, were there any other flaws, though, like in character design? My lines was just a little insert. Were there any great big flaws that you saw besides little minuscule here and there's?
I mean, a lot of it just had to do with early animation jank not having inverse kinematics, like I said, to help out with legs. But also, another thing I noticed was... so in 3D animation, you basically define a pose, and then you define another pose, and the computer kind of interpolates between the two, and that's how you get that smooth motion, because in 2D you have to do it by hand, and it kind of gives it a choppy look unless you draw a bunch of frames. It was very clear in some cases where an animator set a pose, and then later on set a different pose, for say the hips specifically or something, or like a hand, and just it completely passed him by, and so you could watch over the course of like 2 seconds as like the hand slowly changed its pose. Another one I noticed in the beginning sequence where Andy is playing with Woody and like in the living room going down the stairs and whatnot, there are literally some shots where Woody's mouth is open. Because I think that was just the default pose of his character when it was brought in to a different file, was just mouth slightly open, like just ever so slightly. And so you can notice, like, continuity-wise, it's totally broken because some shots, Woody's mouth is... Well, actually, his whole face is either posed because he's, in that toy mode where he's, like, not emoting, not doing anything. Or it's completely blank, mouth slightly agape. And it's like... Yeah. I mean, admittedly, it's almost always scenes that have Andy in it, which must have been a nightmare to try and animate. So I can see how that might have flown under the radar, but still, yeah.
Man. I can't say that much from a animation standpoint on the errors, but I can say there were some one of the things that came to my head as far as, I don't know if this is a mistake as much as I just found it like odd what the rules are. So Woody, when he first comes alive, he starts speaking through his voice, his pull string voice.
Yeah.
And he said he went off script. So they had never shown before that he had the capability to do that. So I guess the jump in logic is just that there was just no reason that he would have to, and then he just decided to. Because then finally, it did work out thematically, because the kicker was when he finally like jumps to life.
Yeah.
And that's when Sid is super terrified.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a weird continuity thing I never noticed, because I don't think he does that in any of the other movies.
No, but I don't think he has to, right?
No.
So I guess that's just we're just supposed to accept that that's how that works.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that there's anything else from like a story level that I think I really appreciate. What some of the things I appreciate were like Sid's character was kind of, you're like, everything's just kind of like the perfect fit for the movie they're trying to make. Like contrasting Andy, who loves toys and his life is all about having toys, with Sid, who's like probably a little bit older and has a little bit of a, he's been listening to some bands like
Yeah. How dare he listen to metal?
Mega dork. I was thinking that it's maybe a little bit of a stereotype that they had going here.
Yeah.
But it might be a realistic stereotype. Although I've never met anybody in real life who is this vicious specifically towards toys. So it's definitely an exaggeration.
Listen, I wasn't around in 1996. I can't really speak as to what the stereotypes were truly like back then, or how accurate they might have been, or inaccurate. Given that I was born in 2002, I can't really say anything.
You're a youngin'. Although I will say, Sid definitely has father issues. Like, for him to assert dominance over non-living toys.
Both Andy and Sid have father issues.
Yes.
If you consider that you never see Andy's father in any of the movies.
Yes, I had that in my notes. Where are the fathers? Where are the fathers in this universe?
Well, you see, Disney had to follow their trope of killing off all the dads, so unfortunately they weren't able to cast any for Pixar's movie.
So is that why they're moving houses? Did they get divorced and Andy's dad?
Heck if I know. I haven't read the novelization.
I feel like we should be creating some sort of lore that's like there's this like dark side to Andy where he's just we never see, but he's just like broken up about the fact that his parents got divorced. But we've never seen any evidence of that, so it's really kind of difficult. But it was something
Andy's father has been in and out of prison for the entire time.
What if Andy's dad cheated on his wife, Andy's mom, with Sid's mom? There's no evidence of that, but it's just like a what if scenario.
Actually,
did you pull up the wiki?
I did. An online, well, not the wiki. The wiki doesn't have an answer, but there is Andy's dad. Around the time Andy's sister was born, that's so sad. He came up with post-polio syndrome and died. I mean, that's not funny. Wow, at Pixar.
How dare you laugh at that?
No, it's like,
how insensitive of you.
Why would Pixar do that? Maybe that's why he loves toys so much, is because he doesn't have a dad to play with. I don't know. That's my theory.
Maybe toys are like his father figure.
What if Woody was his favorite for so long because Andy's father is actually Tom Hanks? So it's just having the voice inside the toy is just like a constant reminder that he's there.
Interesting. Maybe.
I love that you have nothing to comment.
Why would they specifically pick polio though? Also, like, that's just too specific. It could have been anything. And also, there's another theory that they got divorced. There's another theory that Andy's dad gave him Woody, and Andy's visualization of his dad is Woody, and that's why he likes it so much. Which makes me wonder, like, why did he like Buzz so much? What did that personify?
Perhaps he was
Bill Nye?
Perhaps he was just finally letting go of the fact that his father wasn't around anymore.
Well, it's not his fault. His dad died of polio.
well, bruh. Okay. Well, I was referring more so to the theory of like, it was a parting gift from Papa, whatever.
Bye, Papa. I know I'm not going to be around, but here is a Woody doll. All right, great.
Have fun. Anywho, time to die.
Here's a Woody doll, son. I gotta go get milk now. So
milk and cigarettes.
And That is the greatest theory of Pixar. There was a lot of Pixar theories of how it interconnects and stuff like that, but Woody's dad is definitely one of the biggest ones. Now that we've kind of covered some of the animation things, I did want to say like about the story. It was like a revolutionary movie because of the animation, because it's just a cool, unique idea that they made as well. I think anthropomorphic toys really worked for Pixar. You know, it's kind of like anthropomorphic toys, then cars, then fish.
Well,
you know,
it kind of helps that toys can more easily dodge the uncanny valley.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And that you see that as kind of almost like a common trope throughout a lot of early Pixar stuff. It's just like, let's not have humans.
Well, what about Inside Out? They had a lot of humans in that.
Well, yeah, because they finally got the technology good at that point.
Oh, you're saying because of animation limitations?
Yes.
Okay.
Because you see, we can talk a lot about what makes humans like absurdly difficult.
Because we're so ugly, it's hard to animate.
Yeah, basically. So, anywho, the human, most people don't know this. One of the parts of your DNA determines how ugly you are. And basically, it's hard to get the ugliness just right in animation. You're either straight too much or not enough, and it just really messes with everything.
And they have to go with these things, correct me if I'm wrong, but they kind of lean into exaggerating different proportions and stuff in order to... No.
Fun fact. In most cases, that is meant to alleviate the uncanny valley because then you don't process... Okay.
Because you're not comparing it
I mean, if we want to be... Do we want to be serious about this or joking about this? Because there's so much I can talk about.
Pixar moms!
No, but they do that. I mean, there might be an extent that they do. It's a kid's movie, so their main goal in it is so you don't compare them as much to regular human beings, right?
Yes. Well, and then there's the principle of animation of appeal, which is basically like you can take really anything and then adjust its shape, adjust its proportions, whatever, and you can end up with something that, visually speaking, is more interesting, more appealing, whatever. So even though something may, for instance, look realistic doesn't always equate to good when it comes to animation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you can make something look more appealing. Like, if I were to model this table that we're recording on, I'd probably take the corners and probably mess with them a little bit. Maybe get this one off kilter, and then that end I'd probably tilt up a little bit. Because even though it's not realistic, it adds visual interest.
And it's all about visual interest.
Basically.
That's what cinematography is about, and therefore it's what animation is about, right?
Yeah.
And you have more control over what the thing actually is.
Yeah.
Because you can change it.
You can model it on a vertice by vertice basis.
You cannot do that with real life things.
Or not vertice. Singular is vertex.
Although you can use CGI, so now...
Yeah.
Now maybe in live
now
action.
Now it's like, the table in that scene looks gross. Put in a CGI one.
We're like not even sitting at a real table.
Yeah, I'm not even resting my elbows on the table. I'm just pretending. It's really starting to make my shoulders sore. But yeah, if we want to... Okay, just to go down a brief rundown of everything that makes humans difficult, just for the sake of time. Subsurface scattering was not a thing at the time. Subsurface scattering is basically the fact that light passes through our skin ever so slightly, which changes how shadows and light and all that sort of stuff work. Then there's also the fact that straight up proportions are hard to get, and we are very picky about faces. Couple that with the fact that human faces, like, there's a lot of moving components. So even if you get like a still image right, as... Wow, Benji, don't ever do that again. There's so many different moving components that you don't even like think about to like move. So even if you get it right in a still image, there's no guarantee it's gonna look good in motion. That's kind of like... Oh, and also a lot of up close detail that might not even come through on like quote unquote camera.
What about my blackheads?
Yeah, that would be an up close detail.
Okay.
Of like, in a strange way, it doesn't even really come up on camera very well. But it looks off if it's not there regardless, because it changes the overall texture and look, despite the fact that you can't even point it out. So anywho, that's kind of a general...
That was nice of you to say. Thank you.
General rundown.
For sure. Okay. I'm going to go through a little thought experiment, all right? So I was thinking that, like, just what struck me through this movie. So I've seen this so many times. So every time you watch a movie, you think about something else. But this one was a little weird. I was thinking, like, what would it actually be like to, like, be a toy? Because they really do try to go down that route of, like, what it's like for their life, you know? Like, don't they? A little bit?
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of
especially near the beginning where it's like they hold meetings about plastic corrosion awareness.
That was actually great. I thought that was great. Mm-hmm. But what do you think? Like, what do you think would be some good things, struggles to be a toy?
Oh, no. You see, I just don't empathize with other people, so I have no idea. No. I don't know. There would be. It's a hard point of comparison because I would initially think like, oh, it's got to be such a simpler life. You know, you don't have to worry about like money or taxes or whatever. But at the same time, if you don't entertain your kid well enough, oops, guess you're going into the garage sale. You know, so it's like there's like different points of struggle. You know, it's not really like. It's not actually any better or worse. It's just different struggles, you know?
It's a life that you can only control it to a small degree. Like, no, think about it. I mean, like, they're talking about all this stuff like, oh, we want to make sure we don't get lost. But then, you know, they have to pretend like they don't have consciousness when Andy's around.
Squeaky in Toy Story 2, literally his squeaker breaks. And he's just put up on a shelf and completely forgotten about. His existence now is just to be on a shelf until he gets thrown away.
Yeah. And yeah, they don't try to... I think there's like a code of conduct. It's not like there's like a police of... They could have made it like there was a government structure and like, you know, toys that have to
like
follow
a Men
this.
in Black type agency.
Yeah, like Boss Baby, which was a stupid movie. Yeah, like Wreck-It Ralph, where they have to follow these rules, and so when Woody does break those rules at the end, it could have been like the Men in Black or the Wreck-It Ralph video game characters are like so upset that he did that, but they didn't do it that way. They made it more like inherently, because we're still thinking as humans, like we're thinking.
We don't really know the mechanics of how that works.
Like
we don't know.
If you're a toy, what matters to you is that you're serving your purpose. But it seems like their desire is for their purpose to be that whoever owns them is, you know, having a joyous time playing with them. Like that's how they
made happy as a result of their
rank
presence.
their value, and so there becomes a very direct like caste system that comes out of that, because it's like if you're the toy who gets played with the most, then you're the toy that has the most value because this is what defines your value, and so that's why the struggle for Woody throughout the series are centered around Andy and like his meaning beyond, you know, Andy, because from Andy's perspective, that is the only meaning he has, like, is that I like him and I get to play with him, and then when I'm 18, I'm not thinking about, you know, like when I was younger, I would put like human empathetic characteristics onto things that I played with, and like down to like I'd be like, oh, I gotta use this crayon because it's not getting used as much. Like maybe I was influenced by Toy Story, I have no idea.
Maybe.
But as you get older, you know, you see like, oh, that's kind of silly, like that's not how things actually work. I'm just like, I know that psychologically what I was doing is just imparting human, like what's a human desire, like to be loved, and then you like put it on these like objects,
and then, you know, your internal desire to be fair. So assuming that they all have human traits, you want to be fair to each of them. Like, okay, you get some playtime now.
Yeah. So it is kind of like, in a weird way, it's like it's taking like that childlike thought process and just like actually applying it to the toys being real.
Yeah.
Like, so maybe in some senses this is like more of a surreal film because it's like Andy's, like all of the toys are based on Andy's imagination, so they're not really real. Anyway, I'm trying to add like more of a Fellini like take on the movie, but anyway, Zach, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, at first you said it kind of made you think like the toys have to be fair. I did have that complex. Toy Story kind of ruined me because I used to have all these Thomas the Tank Engine toys and stuff like that, and I would always feel bad if I didn't play with one. Like I would purposefully play with every single one and make sure that they had equal playtime. Like seriously, this is how OCD I was about it. I felt bad when one got less playtime than the other. And it was all so dumb, but like that's what I was thinking as a stupid little kid, you know?
I don't remember having that urge very like badly or anything, but I do think it was there a little bit, just because it's like, one, also part of it is just sort of a kid, just being a kid, you know, naturally you're gonna play with a toy for like maybe half an hour, and then you're gonna get bored with it, and then you just switch to a different one. Mm-hmm. So part of it is just sort of like inherent of like, okay, I'm going to go through like my rotation of toys, you know, so more likely than not, I'm going to play with each of them, you know, on a somewhat...
Well, it's because you're stupid when you're a kid. You're dumb. You forget that it brings you And then you play with it again, thinking, I'm going to find happiness in this. It's really what we're doing on a grand scheme in life as adults.
Yeah. That has brought about so much of my existential dread.
It's like drugs.
Moving on. So.
Yeah, no, it is. But no, I think it would be kind of hard to be a toy, honestly. Like, I don't know, like, compared to humans, like, they have no rights, right? I mean, you can't really do anything. You have no choice. Like,
Yeah.
you're serving a master with no rights. Like, there has a lot of terrible parallels with that, right? But, like, it's a little bit happier, and you get, there's more rights than actual slavery. That's what I'm saying. I'm not comparing it at all in any way. I'm saying you have no rights, and you don't really have any pursuits or life plans or anything like that. You're kind of just stuck there in the same room. You don't really move out of the place except if you're a little army figure that gets stepped on.
Yeah.
I don't know. It would kind of be like just super boring in general. Like, you have no family. Like, your only family are the exact copies of you because you're just mass produced in a factory.
Yeah. I love that joke from the beginning of the movie where Rex talks about how he was made from an offshoot of Mattel.
Yeah. Well, Buzz is made in Taiwan. I thought that was cool too. That's when he discovers. But yeah, I mean, you don't get to choose your friends even. You're in a small group of people that.
And you gotta hope you like them.
Yeah, because Woody's friends honestly were stupid, like all of them. The only smart one was Ham. Ham's the only MVP in this movie because he's the richest. That's it. None of my other friends matter. I would kill Ham and take the money. Honestly, I would. But
yeah, you'd be a whole like $1.50 richer.
Yeah, but you just have less purpose than any other being. Bees have more purpose than you because at least they help other ecosystems survive. You can't reproduce as a toy. Right? Like, you can't. It doesn't work, if you know what I mean. And, like, which makes... So then love is useless. Like, where are Woody and Bo Peep gonna go? Nowhere. Their relationship's going nowhere, right? Like, I mean, you can't do anything. I mean, that's not the point of relationships, but, like, that's just kind of how... No, seriously, though. Like, you can't eat. There's no pleasure. There's no, like, happiness in, like, stuff, because you are the stuff, right? Like, you can be happy that Andy writes something on your foot, but... It's not exciting, really. You know, it wears off, and it means nothing once Andy goes to college. There's no religion, right?
Could you imagine if one of the toys in Andy's lineup was like a super, like one of those like Christian toys?
Yeah, they don't have souls. They can't go anywhere after in the afterlife. If they died in the fire, they would nowhere. They have no soul.
Yeah,
neither does
they're
Buster.
Plastic.
Yeah,
maybe cloth sometimes.
Exactly. I mean, they could be reusable if you recycle the toy, and then they could be used.
Hold on. What if a toy becomes a water bottle?
So then what happens? Like, when does the toy lose consciousness?
That's a great question.
And why does
I think you forget that I didn't write this movie.
What is
You're asking me like I know.
Why does that configuration of plastic allow for like thought and feeling? And well, the thing is,
because a child says so. Ooh, that's my toy now.
That's why I'm starting to believe.
Bada bing, bada boom.
I'm starting to believe that the way to actually think about this is viewing it as like this is like a representation of what Andy thinks is going on with his toys when he's not there. Like, because of this movie, I always was like, my toys are real. Just I believed it to like a very small extent,
the thing
and
is,
I like would plead with them. But I definitely remember
Please
vividly
don't kill
a couple
me in
of
my
times.
sleep.
No, I wanted them to be alive.
I
was like,
stepped on you on accident, but you were just on the floor. I'm sorry.
well, maybe the animals I cast as like more like bad guy characters I didn't really want to talk to, but the ones that I really liked, I was like, come on, you know, if you can talk, just do it. Like, don't worry about the rules. They never talked, so that was pretty disappointing.
Wouldn't that be really horrifying if they did, though?
I mean, yeah, because I believed it to the extent, but I didn't actually believe it, you know, because, you know, like, if I would have been stunned if it actually talked, because that would be ridiculous.
You see, that was the thing. Your belief just wasn't strong enough.
So but then...
If you believe...
I mean, that is what we learned in Disney movies, so...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then, like, it's just not... I don't know. Like, you have no hopes for any afterlife at all as a toy because you do have the ones at the end of the movie, like their heads were cut off. Like the baby's head was cut off and it was placed on that spider-like thing. So, like, they still live even after. If your head gets cut off, you're living. You're just going to dangle there, okay, until you're burnt to the crisp and put in the soil and take 1,000,000 years to degrade, okay? That's kind of how it goes. And even if souls do exist in the Toy Story universe, this is completely different. It's not our universe. I'm not making any statements about religion. It's not gonna end well either way. Like, toys aren't gonna be the souls. They're not going to have anything. You don't get to change your clothes. Okay, you're stuck.
They'll just be in wherever their afterlife is. They'll still be toys in the Toy Story universe. So
there's an image I need to pull up because I need your thoughts on it.
So yeah, I kind of agree. But I think the thing is, you only can desire what you know. They don't know any better because they can't have free will, and they can't. So they're perfectly fine living in a state of constant anxiety because that's the only state that they can't actually live in. So the way they find happiness is the way that people try to find happiness in real life, and that because we also aren't in control as much as we want to be, and so we a lot of times end up allowing ourselves to live in states of anxiety where we're like we feel like a toy in Toy Story. But
okay, Mr.
We have a little bit
major. Sorry, you brought up that you couldn't change clothes for some reason, and that just for some reason that got me thinking about this Elmo toy.
For those of you that can't see, which that's everyone, don't bother.
It's just
you might as well just not have eyesight. All right, you might as well be blind.
Imagine living as that toy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like the toy in Toy Story.
That's a waking nightmare.
That's the toy in Toy Story 2 that's strapped to the car. It's like that one. But I don't know. Like, I know I could keep going on and on, but like, you don't have medical care. You don't have an immune system. When Woody gets that hole in his head, like, there's no fixing that unless you put like some rice or something and you scrape it in there. I don't know, but yeah, I don't know.
That is the thing about toys. They can be repaired, as evidenced by Woody literally losing his arm and then having it reattached later.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like.
And like,
but that's the thing. It's like it's almost like advanced healthcare, where it's like you can just repair anything.
Well, you have the guy in Toy Story 2 that repairs up Woody, but then you also have they can't celebrate holidays. But the thing is, like for Christmas, it's like your mom having a new brother every Christmas, right? Like there's a new toy that comes.
Well, not just
every
Christmas, birthdays.
Yeah, birthdays, Christmas. Like it doesn't take long. It doesn't take a long time for your family to grow, which sucks. It sucks. You can't prepare for that. How are you going to allocate resources in that way? How is Woody supposed to be prepared for every birthday, every Christmas, I don't know if people get presents for Easter.
You see, it's simple. He sends down army men every time so he can get ahead of the curve just moments before Andy heads upstairs, so he can, really just like I cannot speak today, my apologies. Subliminally kind of make sure that he's still the favorite by putting himself in such a certain way or whatever else. But how much does that really help? Because half the time, probably not that much.
The radio just crackles and they can't hear anything. Anyway, after all that work, after there's a soldier that literally gets stepped on and almost dies, and that was actually a funny sequence because every time they went back to the soldiers, like you saw that soldier that was still like. And then they had the medical guy come over to him and like fix him up, but it's like, this is their purpose: is to risk their lives for the other toys.
If you're a toy, is super glue just like a cure-all? Like it just especially if you're made out of plastic, super glue just takes care of every injury you could ever have.
But it also leaves a scar because you'll always be able to see like the glue kind of reattaching something.
Yeah.
It's kind of like having surgery and you have those scars can sort of like become less pronounced over time, but they're still always there.
Yeah, but I mean, any major damages are covered,
That's true. And because major damages are covered, that reminds us of Hedman Anglin Agency. They may not cover toys, they may not cover health, but they do cover auto, home, and business. And guess who was moving and getting a new house? Andy in this movie. So in order that you are set up well, which is our main concern on the Movie Vault, that you individually, the listener, are in a position that if anything bad happens to you, you're going to be taken care of. And that's why we're providing this resource to you. So call Hedman Anglin Agency at 614-486-7300. That's 614-486-7300. And tell them that Ben and Zach sent you. They will save you money so you can spend more money watching movies, and you could spend less time having anxiety and worrying about what will happen if your house burns down. So, or you get in a car accident or anything like that. So make sure that you keep that in mind. So now we're going to move on to a little section that I'm tentatively or at least for the time being, I'm calling it the newsstand.
Uh-oh.
So we're at the corner of a block, and I have the news out, and I'm trying to sell you a newspaper. So I'm going to pick out a very an article that will stick out and stand out to you, make you want to buy the rest of my paper. So yesterday I was at the movies. I went to see a movie called Vengeance, directed by B.J. Novak of The Office, and it was a pretty good movie. It wasn't perfect, but it definitely had a lot of interesting things, and it was cool to see B.J. Novak in a leading role and a directing role and a writing role. But before the movie, I saw a trailer for a movie that's coming out. And this is what I want to talk about. So I'm just going to read you the summary, and then we'll get into why this movie is so interesting. While putting his life back together following a suicide attempt, an unstable young man named Franklin meets a girl online who starts to make him feel better. Her name is Becca. She's way prettier than he deserves, and she really seems interested in him. How or why this person chose Franklin out of all the incels on Facebook doesn't amount to a hill of beans. Life seems to be looking up, and yet Franklin would do well to be a smidge skeptical because he's being catfished by his father.
What?
The movie is called I Love My Dad. And this movie is a movie, it's starring Patton Oswalt, and it's about a guy.
When you said Patton Oswalt, I thought you were going to say
who is
Patrick Stewart for a second.
Who is having a online relationship with his father, and it goes into all of the details of what an online relationship might entail. And then we also see what his parents, his mom's involved too, are texting him and how he's responding when they're not in the same room in the trailer. It's, if you look it up, it's one of the most uncomfortable experiences.
So I think the ultimate prank is to watch it with your whole family on Father's Day.
And so what, I was just kind of stunned, honestly, watching this trailer, because I was like, I couldn't think of a more, like, first of all, it's such a, like, okay, so we'll pause, we'll watch the trailer itself, and then we'll come back and we'll give our thoughts. That's a good idea. We'll do that. So we've come back from that was quick. I didn't give you guys a lot of time to like take a break.
I'm still traumatized.
But we watched it, so now I'm gonna get the reaction from Jonathan and Zach after seeing the trailer for the first time.
Well, where do I begin? First off, it had more big name talent behind it than I expected. Like, I was like, oh, I recognize some of these actors. It's like, oh, I didn't expect that. And also, it's like, the fact, according to the trailer, it's inspired by a true story.
Wait, that's stupid. I think it looks terrible. I think it's gonna be hilarious. I love Patton Oswalt, but the thing is, like, going into this trailer, the way Ben described it, I thought his dad loved him, like, in a weird way. But, like, no, his dad's doing it to stay in touch. I was like, oh, okay, that makes more sense.
That does help things out a lot.
Yeah, I was like, okay, that makes more sense. But terrible idea, whoever made that idea. And if it's based off a true story, terrible fatherly idea. That's why I'm not gonna be a father, because of movies like this. But I don't know. It's just kind of weird because Hollywood will finally get to these ideas that are just kind of weird and then just go with it because they've run out of ideas. All the Toy Stories have been used up.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, if they were just to make a Toy Story 5 now, I mean, like, what would be the point?
I don't know. Sequels are always a great idea, right?
Yeah. Hold on. How about a prequel where we get to watch the toys that Andy's dad played with?
Wow, he had polio. He's in like one of those well, he probably already. What was the timeline? Wouldn't the polio vaccine have already come out by then? I don't know. Yeah, so I don't know I don't know anything about post polio though, so
this
I'm not really
is a
familiar.
dystopian future where vaccines don't exist.
Yeah, perhaps. Well, some people that would be paradise. It just depends on who you talk to. But I think back to the I Love My Dad thing. Just to wrap it up, I think the thing about, I watched Vengeance, which I think I Love My Dad could fall into some of the same pitfalls that Vengeance did, in that I think Vengeance was a little bit too, like, time capsule-ish, meaning that, like, in 5 or 10 years, if I were to watch that movie, I would be like, man, I feel like I'm like this is so out of touch with now because it's like exactly 2022. A lot of the things that are referenced and talked about and stuff, and I don't know that it'll translate well over time. Kind of the same with like this like catfish anything that's like really based on like any sort of technology is just, it feels destined to look tacky like very soon if it doesn't already look tacky, just because technology moves on so quickly from where it currently is.
I think it will for a while, but eventually it'll reach a point where instead of being tacky, it becomes nostalgic.
That's true. So it might just have to have a waiting period.
Yeah.
Because, like, obviously you go back and watch a movie in the 70s that has themes about what was going on then. You might not really understand it, but you get that, like, oh, this is something that they were really grappling with at this time.
Yeah. Yeah.
That sort of thing. Okay. Back to Zach.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was. I'm not gonna see it. Sorry, Ben. I mean, it looks funny. I'll see Vengeance, but if it's kind of caught up in, if it's like all COVID jokes, I probably won't watch it. I'm just kind of tired of that. So I'm tired of comedy specials too. But I don't know. That's all I have for Toy Story. I kind of was a little bit less liking it this time, to be honest. What would you give it out of 10, Jonathan?
Ooh, are we considering its historical significance, or is it just like as a movie, just nowadays?
Yes.
Okay, maybe like, I don't know, 8, but that's mostly fed by nostalgia, if we're being honest.
Okay. That's fair.
I also would give it an 8. I had it rated as a 7, but I think, oddly enough, I feel like I've already had the reaction that Zach had to it, and this time my expectations were lower, and so it kind of beat my expectations because I'd like lowered them too low. So now it's like I have it as an 8. And the other, I think I like 2 better, I like 3 best, and I like 4 maybe on par with 2, kind of.
I think my ranking from worst to best is maybe 4, 2, 1, 3. I think
3's your least favorite?
No. From worst to best.
Oh, from worst to best. 4, 2, 1, 3. Okay.
Yeah. I just barely prefer the first one over the second. Although, if we ever talk about the second one at some point, I can talk about how leaps and bounds in technology were made at that point. It is dramatically improved.
Well,
and also has a really fun history behind it.
Like 5 years, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Separate the movies.
I think less.
1999, so 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is fun because it was probably made in, if my memory serves, it was made in under 1. So that's fun.
I love it when they constrain everyone. Makes me happy as
Don't
a viewer.
you love crunch in any industry?
I love it when I have when I'm playing with the toy and I realize that it was probably made in some sweatshop in another country that's probably very low under absolute poverty conditions.
But thank goodness it was delivered by the truckers.
Yes, the truckers. I'm telling you. I'm serious. I'm not joking. I know we're laughing. You laugh now, but once the truckers go on strike, you'll die.
Yeah.
We'll all die.
Yeah, probably.
And then we'll still be podcasting. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
But anyway, any great closing thoughts, Jonathan, before, sorry to cut you off, but anything at all?
It's very clear they didn't have reflections figured out at that point. And
Okay.
it really messes with some things because they have specular highlights, but then they don't have reflections whatsoever. And that adds a world of depth to all of their future movies once they figure it out.
For you, it does, yeah. For me, I don't really care or know. So, but for you,
Yes,
I'm really
that's a fair enough assessment.
I'm glad you're into it because I don't know anything. Hopefully, some of you like animation. If not, you're gonna be really bored by this episode. Or I mean, by the time you got here, you're already been bored. But like, Jonathan's a great speaker, so he can't make it any boring. Any boring
thanks.
parts.
I disagree with you, but thanks.
All right, well that's fine. And I don't know. I think I'll give it a 7.
Yeah.
I think it's like a solid 7. It's arbitrary, whatever that means. So I'll just stick with that.
It helps that a lot of the jokes are still good.
But I'll say this: Pixar, stop making Toy Story. So I'm kind of tired of it. I want it to just end and be done forever. And maybe I'll rewatch them. Maybe I won't. Just be done. I don't want any kids to enjoy what I enjoyed. So yeah, for the future kids, sorry, you're gonna get stupid emoji movies and Angry Birds and stuff like that. Just be happy with what you got, okay? At least you're not in a cart traveling across the Oregon Trail, okay? And watching birds, okay? So that's,
Hey man, don't you diss watching birds. That was my favorite activity back then.
Yeah, some kids couldn't even see. Bifocals weren't invented. So it's just kind of, just be happy with what you have. Emoji movie, if that's the best you got, just might as well be blind, like I said. So anyway, it's been great, Jonathan. Ben, do you have any closing arguments or thoughts?
I argue that. No, I'm just kidding.
This has become a debate all of a sudden.
We can be very thankful this movie exists because arguably, Pixar would not have made in the next 10 to 15 years, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, 10 to 15 years was really the sweet spot that Pixar made an exceptional amount of movies that really, I think, added a lot of artistic merit to CGI 3D computer animation as like a beyond just a
Special effect.
beyond just a thing for children.
Yeah.
Like it made, or into special effect, it made it into its own art form that could be respected by movie critics. I mean, I feel like with a lot of the Pixar movies during this era, most of them were universally loved by critics and universally loved by fans, and that's a very rare thing. It's like Pixar hit on something so like, and it's important to say that it was because of the artistic style of the computer animation and in combination with exceptional storytelling that really focused on some very basic elements of humanity that had just not been, I guess, put together in that way before. I mean, the critics love like the dramas that are about, really extreme things happening or very violent situations, or or just like a movie that's 2 hours about a guy going insane. That's a very popular, a la Taxi Driver and Joker. And those movies, there's some merit to them, but, it's not going to have the highest level of relatability. And
are you telling me you don't go insane every other Friday?
Because, like, they're purposely talking about people who are on the fringes of society. Pixar chooses to pick the people who are in the general average person and make the movies about them and emotions that they're experiencing. And they were able to do that with using fish, with using monsters, with using superheroes.
It took them forever to finally tell human stories with humans.
With using rats, with using robots, with using balloons.
Yes, because the balloons were the main character of Up.
But you know what I mean.
The true characters were the balloons we made along the way.
Pixar really gave life to inanimate objects. That's all. That's my closing thought.
Yeah. All
right. So our Instagram is the Movie Vault Pod @the Movie Vault Pod. Our email is themovievaultpod@gmail.com, and Zach's personal address. No, I'm just kidding.
His social security number is.
And so make sure you check us out on our socials, and keep in touch with us. And we're aiming to do some very exciting things in the future. So hold us accountable to that, and make sure that we stay excited about the future of the podcast. So with that, it's time to close the vault, Jonathan.
I just love that you were talking about staying excited about the future of the podcast, and in that exact moment, Zach yawned.
If that isn't
All right. I don't know. Let's go ASMR with I'm going to crush this can of Arnold Palmer right into the mic. That's going to be the sound that closes everything off. All right, 3, 2, 1.